I have no idea if this is going to work, but it's story time with Dave. So we went camping. We went up to a friend's cottage, a bunch of weeks back, end of July. And it was utterly fantastic. It was a good weekend. And he has a cottage up somewhere up north in the northern parts of Ontario. And we went up there and we brought our trailer, and it was great because, of course, there's a whole bunch of us. All our friends were up there, and we had a nice weekend. And it's on a small lake that has a lot of crown land around it. So you can go canoeing to various spots, and it's crown land, and it's great because there's no cottages and whatever. It's quiet. It's not a water skiing lake by any stretch, which is nice. So it was a nice quiet weekend. So here's part of the story that happened on the weekend. I'm just gonna move this thing over there, and you might be able to gather by the die flag in the back that I moved over there specifically for this wonderful video that I made. This is the Cole's Notes version, and I'm sure the Cole's Notes version is gonna be longer than the story I could tell if you guys were present, and I can just sit around the campfire and talk about it. But the Cole's Notes version is leaving some people out of the story because it's just easier. And I didn't want to build a lot of minifigs. So anyway, so to start the story, there is a tree somewhere on the lake with a rope swing, and all the kids were over there having a grand old time, and we were back at the cottage. Sandy and me were back at the cottage. And Sandy got this great idea. Let's go over and take some pictures of the kids at the rope swing. Now, to get to the rope swing, they got a little tiny 14-foot aluminum boat with a little, whatever, 9.9 in the back or 20 in the back, whatever it is. I don't pay attention to boat motors anymore. So the host of the, well, let's say this, I'll use names. Carter, one of the kids, but an older kid, took all the kids over to the rope swing, and he's responsible enough. He's like older kid, has his license, and he took all the kids over to the rope swing, and the kids were having a good time. So that included Josh and 2 or 3 other kids. So Sandy and I said, hey, let's go over and we'll canoe over, which is a nice little canoe trip. It's like, it's 15 minutes in a canoe to get over to the rope swing. So here's me and Sandy. Here's the canoe. And here's me and Sandy. Now, so we have our cell phones. See, these are going to be the cell phones. And the cell phones are in the canoe. You just get so used, and I've been pushing a canoe around since I was 12 years old. I own a canoe. I got my certificate, blah, blah, blah. Like, you need one for a canoe. But I know how to push a canoe around. I've gone on massive canoe trips for weeks at a time, long portages, how to camp, blah, blah, blah. I've done it. I'm not doing it anymore because I'm too old, and honestly, I don't feel like it. If I could pack up my entire tent trailer into a canoe, that's fine, but no, that doesn't happen. So day trips are fine for me. So I know how to move a canoe, and Sandy's pretty good at it too. So the little thing is that this canoe that we were in was, Joe built it. Our friend Joe built it. It's a cedar strip. It's a gorgeous canoe, but it's not a prospector. It didn't have a flat bottom. It was very, very tippy. But I pushed more tippy canoes around lakes in my past. And so I didn't even think about it. I remember, and just a quick tangent, when I had my Kodak DC-120 digital science camera that cost me $1,000 back in the day, and I went on a canoe trip, I had that thing in a Ziploc. Honestly, on the canoe trips, I put it in a Ziploc, took it out, took a picture, and put it back in a Ziploc just in case the canoe tipped. And I had a Kawartha canoe that was almost untippable, and I put it in a Ziploc. I put my camera, my $1,000 digital camera, in a Ziploc. This time, you just get so used to things, you don't even think about it anymore. I hopped in the canoe, brought my phone, Sandy brought her phone, and we were just taking pictures and having a grand old time. Anyway. So we're canoeing over to where the kids are, and we're off the shore, 30 feet, following the shoreline, and then for whatever reason, and we won't go into the details of why, but Sandy and I both turned our heads at exactly the same time and turned around to look behind us. We didn't talk to each other. Also, we just looked around and turned over, and all of a sudden the canoe went right over. And so the phones fell into the water. So, and then Sandy and I were also in the water. So the canoe's upside down. So here's the story part, playing with Lego. The canoe's upside down. Sandy and I the oars are floating around on the water. Sandy and I are swimming, and we're pushing the canoe towards. Now, years and years ago, so here's another quick tangent. So I couldn't have been more than 10 or 12 years old. We were still at the old house. We lived at the old house, and my dad had a 16-foot aluminum with a 25 on the back that he used to use for his dive boat for him and his buddies. And occasionally he would take it out in Lake Ontario and give us kids a scooter on Lake Ontario. We hop in at 50 Point, and we go up and down the coast at 50 Point. And one time, my Uncle Jeff had a littler boat, smaller boat, 16-foot small, but a smaller boat with a 14-foot with a little tiny 25 on the back probably. And we're all scooting up and down Lake Ontario, like half a mile out from the shore. And at one point, it wasn't a rough day, but at one point, Uncle Jeff, because he was in the back, like in the back of the boat, like this, like he's in the back of the boat. Like my dad had the front wheel steering of the boat and all the controls on the front, but Uncle Jeff's boat was too small for that. So he's sitting in the back, and Uncle Jeff's a big guy. So the boat was riding like this. And his three kids, Derek, Mike, and Craig, my cousins, were all in the front. And between the three of them, they couldn't have been 100 pounds. So the boat's like this, it flips over, right? And Dad suddenly stops his boat. My dad all of a sudden stops his boat, and he looks towards the shore, and he says, he picked 2 points on the shore, this way and then this way. And he says, the boat flipped because all the stuff fell out of Uncle Jeff's boat, tools and stuff. The motor was attached to the boat, so it didn't come off. But Dad's a scuba diver. He looked in the shore, where the shore was, and it looked so he can kind of triangulate where the boat flipped over, because he's going to bring all his dive buddies out there the next weekend and go find this stuff. It's a cute dive site. I remember that story vividly because I'm in the front of my dad's boat when Uncle Jeff's boat flips over, and I'm the first one that jumped in the water to make sure my cousins were okay. So I'm over to my cousins, and they all had their life jackets on. Everybody had their life jackets on, and nobody was hurt. It's just we had to get the boat to the shore so we could empty it out, and the motor's flooded and blah blah blah. So Dad towed it back to the thing, blah blah blah. Anyway, so that's the end of that story. But Dad, I specifically remember that, and it was just the oddest thing my whole life. I remember my dad telling us at the point when we were in the boat and this Uncle Jeff's boat flips over, that you look to the shore and you look for data points. Basically, you look for something that's going to trigger your mind exactly where the boat flipped over. So this is 40 years, well, over 40 years later. This is like 45 years later. Sandy and I flip over in the boat and the canoe, and we're swimming in the water, and we're on this side of the canoe, and the shore is that way, right? So I look, the second I pop my head above the water, I'm wearing my Tilly hat, by the way, because this is as close to the Tilly hat because I'm always wearing my Tilly hat in the summer. All my friends get annoyed with me for that. So I look to the shore, and I say, there's a fallen over tree right in front of me. We're 30 feet off the shore. There's a fallen over tree right there. There's a stump. You can see all the roots sticking out like a pinwheel there. And then I look 45 degrees, and there's a birch tree right over there. Piece of cake. So I said, this should be easy, because the second I hit the water, I knew the phones were gone. No, the phones had fallen down. So I grabbed the paddles. I flipped the canoe over. The canoe's full of water. I put the paddles in the canoe, and Sandy and I are pushing it back to the shore. The kids are around the corner in the rope swing, and Carter comes over with his boat. He says, "Hey!" And by that time, we have the canoe empty of water because I can stand on the shore, so it's way back here on the shore, right? And Sandy's standing on the shore. I didn't bother building that, by the way. Sorry for the crudity of this reenactment. I didn't have enough time. I'm all of a sudden Doc Brown and Back to the Future. Sorry for the crudity of this little escape I built here, this little miniature I built. But anyway, so Carter comes over. Sandy hops in the boat, and I say to Carter, well, I got the canoe empty and I'm in the canoe now. Go get my dive gear, because I had brought my dive gear up. I said, hey, I'm going to maybe go diving this weekend. So Carter takes Sandy back to the cottage, and he shows up with all my dive gear. So here's me loading up the dive gear. And he comes back with my buddy John with his dive gear. Right. So actually, no, what happened was, sorry, let's back this up. Carter brings my dive gear back, and then finds other people to help. So I'm going to take some time now. The canoe's still around, and my buddy Mark's in it now. So Carter brings my dive gear back. I put on my dive gear. on the shore. And here's me putting my dive gear on. My buddy Mark comes over with the canoe, and I don't have a Mark minifig, so I'm going to use Carter again. So Mark comes back in the canoe. Carter's busy getting everybody else ready. So this is Carter and Mark now. So Carter's in the canoe, Mark's in the canoe, and he's feeling the wind, he's feeling the waves, he's feeling oh, I forgot to put the scuba tank on. That was silly me. I'm gonna put my scuba tank on. Can't go diving without a scuba tank. So here's me with a double hose regulator. No, I did not have my double hose regulator on this. I have my single hose octopus. So, but here's me, decked out my dive gear. Hello, me, decked out in dive gear. And I'm gonna put, I should have made more minifigs for this. Sorry about that. So here's me. And I'm down here and I'm looking for my phone. Because I said, again, I come up with my dive gear. There's a stump right in front of me. Like it was easy. It's 30 feet off the shore, 30 or 40 feet off shore. It has to be right down here. And the birch tree's over there. And Mark's in the canoe above me, watching my bubbles, making sure I'm okay because I'm diving alone. So I'm going down here, and the very first thing I hit is a log. The second I went down, there's this log. Okay. Now, when I pushed the canoe to shore to empty it out, the rock wall goes to about 4 feet of water. So you can stand up in it. You can stand up, and that's how I was able to empty a canoe easily. Because I took the course, I know how to empty the canoe in the middle of a lake. But I didn't have to because the shore is right there. I just pushed the canoe, emptied it out, put it back on, and then whatever. So anyway, my dive gear's back. Mark's in the paddle, in the canoe. And he said, hey, I come up. I can't find it. He says, oh, go over here. So I go over here. And he goes, oh, go over here. I go over here. And I'm just putzing around, wasting almost a half a tank of air. Now, from here to the ground is about 20 feet. So you can last on a tank of air for a very long time if you're a good diver. 20 feet of water. You can make a tank last a long time in 20 feet of water. And I'm just going up and down, methodically going around from this log that I hit the first time I hopped in water, and then going in bigger circles, and then go over here with Mark says, go over here, bigger circles, and then go over here, bigger circles, and blah, blah. So I'm going to take Mark. Actually, I'm just going to grab another minifig. Let me make a minifig quickly if I can, because this might be easier. I'm going to grab some random parts here. I'm not making it color coded at all. Oh, a nice happy face because these are my friends. So my buddy John shows up. He's wearing this, forget the actual suit. I should have had this ready. I should have thought about more people. So my buddy John shows up. He's got his dive gear on, and Mark disappears from the canoe because he's not needed anymore because John's back and the boat's back. So here's the boat and Carter. Now we're going to make the Mark minifig turn back into a Carter minifig. So Carter's up top. John's down here with me, and John and I, again, straight up. So here's the two of us. The tree falling over is right there. There's no other tree. There's absolutely no other tree falling over on this island, right, or the shoreline right in front of us. And the birch tree is still over there. There's only one birch tree that I could see when I flipped the canoe, and there's still only one birch tree. So we go down and we start going around, and we're looking around. I go this way, he goes this way, and we're going out farther. Now, there's this log, and there's about 4 or 5 feet between the log and the rocky slope going up to the shore. Now the rocks, you would see the phone. You would see a phone if it fell on the rocks. You would see the phone. But if the phone fell along the rocks, it would go right down to the bottom. So I'm meticulously searching down here, right? And so is John. He's going this way. And then we couldn't find it. And we don't want to disturb the ground. So if you're an accomplished diver, I mean, we're not cave diving, but there's a way of moving around in the water close to the ground without disturbing the ground. Because if you dove in Lake Ontario, well, not that we weren't in Lake Ontario, but if you dove in any of those small lakes up north, basically the bottom is silt. And if you just touch it, you stir it up. Like this is a solid Lego piece, but you could sink your hand into the silt, and it'd probably go up to your elbow if you push hard enough. Like it's just fine silt. It's kind of muddy if it was underground. But if something got lost in the silt, it's going to be lost forever. But if something fell on top of the silt, there's probably enough tension or whatever. Like we found beer cans, 2 or 3 beer cans, logs, little branches, whatever, sitting on top of the silt. which is fine. So we're doing this, and then so we're going over here and then going over here, following the rock, looking all over the rocks, and then Carter's above us. And I wasted the entire tank of air that I had, and John wasted all his air. We were out of air. So that's the end of day one. So we hop back into the boat. We go into the boat. We we go back to the cottage for that night. And it just bothered me the entire night. Like, it's not. Sandy had just bought her phone. It was not even a week old. She traded in her old phone. She got a new phone, brand spanking new phone, iPhone 11. It's like, holy whatever. She lost her phone. So it's like, but I had brought 2 tanks up there. So the next day, John couldn't come with us. So my buddy Joe came with us. And so he's got his dive gear on. He brings his boat. Carter drove the boat, and Joe's in there, and I'm in there. And I said, well, I'm going to rig up my... Let me just plug this thing in because my phone's going to die. Should have been ready for that, too. I'm hoping the quarter reaches. Tangent on the story time because the phone's almost dead. So anyway, so day 2, I grab my other scuba tank. Joe grabs his scuba tank. We go back there, but overnight I rig up a dive flag with a weight on the bottom. So I said, as soon as we get to where I think we flipped the boat fell off. I mean, the engine fell off. Can't have that. As soon as we get to, and we're all pilot. It's a bigger boat than this. Then pictured. So let's leave them out there. I'm gonna throw this lead weight. I put one of my lead weights from scuba diving on the bottom of my buoy, because I have this in my kit for diving. I have a dive flag with an inflatable little thing. And so what I did was I just the boat was still moving, and I just reached over and I threw the weight in, and it landed right there beside the log where we were yesterday, which is a huge coincidence because the boat was still moving when I threw the weight into the water. And I was holding on to the other end of the rope, and so the weight hit the bottom, and I just let it go. So the dive flag is floating there. You don't need a dive flag in this lake, but it's nice to have. I always keep it with me, but there's no boats except for Joe's. So Joe and I hop in the water, and we follow this line down. And let me put these sticks because I like moving these guys around like it's a puppet show. So here's me. We're at the log, and the weight just fell right beside the log there. And I'm going this way, and Joe's going this way, and we're going around. Occasionally we come back to the log. And at one point, and let me just, where's my phone? I have a black phone, an iPhone XR, and Sandy had an iPhone 11. It was basically a light beige. So you would see this thing. It's 20 feet of water. Now, I will say, as a addendum for the day before when we were diving for this, it was a cloudy day, and if you've dove in again up north anywhere, the lakes are they're clear, but they're almost like tea. so unless the sun's like really bright, you go down about 30 feet, you're not seeing too much without a dive light. Now we were in 20 feet and the visibility was good, but it was darker. But Joe and I went at noon the next day. The sun's right overhead, so the sun's just gleaming right down, and so we jumped in. We found the cord, and I went this way and Joe went that way. So we're both coming back, and Joe sees this rectangle underneath the log. Now the log is kind of on top of the silt, like fully on top of the silt, like it wasn't immersed at all in the silt, because there's kind of like a little bit of a rocky protuberance keeping this log from sinking into the silt. And the sun's shining straight down, and he comes back and he sees a rectangle underneath the log because it curves back in, right? He goes, oh, and I could hear him because again, we have regs in our mouth. You can't talk, but I can hear him screaming. Ah! Right, so, and I come over and he's holding my phone. And I'm going, out of the 2 phones that you could potentially find, why would you find mine first? Because like, you know, mine's black and hers is beige and blah, blah, blah. Hers is new and mine's not. So he gives me my phone, but he's out of air. So he disappears. So he's out of air. I have my phone, right? So I have my phone in my hand. And I now know that Sandy's phone has to be near this log, right? It has to be, because we flipped the canoe at the same time. We were both in the canoe. The phones were together on top of one another in the canoe. The canoe flipped over. So her phone has to be near this log, which I said from the beginning it has to be near this log from the day before. So I start just really getting right down close without touching the ground, because again, you don't want to stir it up, because then you're not seeing anything for a week. So I get down there and I'm just thoroughly looking at, because it's silt and you would think you would see a disturbance. If something hit the silt the day before, you would think you would see like a rectangle in the silt or something in the silt, some sort of disturbance. Because if you look very closely at the silt, you can see these little lines, probably from fish or whatever, or maybe mollusks or whatever. And there's a little leaf here, and there's these little tiny algae, whatever, blooms on there. So I'm just really close, like 3 or 4 inches off the ground, and I'm looking all the way around this log, and I start going out a foot or two, and I start going out a foot or two. More and more, and I'm circling this log, and I could not find her phone for the life of me. And I'm just miffed now, because my phone I don't care about, because work gives me a new phone, so it really doesn't matter. Sandy's phone, brand spanking new, not even a week old. I was so upset that I could not find her phone. So I said, I'll just throw caution to the wind right now, because I'm getting low on air. I've already gone through half a tank of air just doing what we're doing today. I'm going to just throw caution to the wind. So basically, I started on this side of the log where my phone was found. And I started, and I'll do this with my real hands. Up and down this side of the log, I just put one hand in, not as deep as it could go, because again, you could go up to your elbow if you wanted to, but just up to the hand. I put it into the silt. And I went up 2 inches with this hand, and I put that one in, and I went like that one, and I went like that. All the way along the length of this side of the log, thinking maybe I'd feel it. Because it fell into the silt, which is the only thing that's left now. There's the only possibility left now that it fell into the silt. Maybe I'm going to find it. So this all the way, 2 inches, all the way along, and then I got to this, and this log is not the scale. So this log was about 12 feet long. It was actually a logging log, because each end was fully nicely cut off. It must have been there for ages. Joe said years ago this was a whole logging area. So this log obviously got waterlogged and just sank to the bottom. So the ends were perfectly finished. But it was 12 feet long. So I went down the whole length of this log on this side, right next to the edge of the log with my hands. And then I got to the end of the log, I turn around, and I come back 6 inches out, and I go this all the way back. And I do it like 2 more times. So I'm out about 1.5 feet from the log now. And of course, it's getting a little stirred up because I'm putting my hand in and pulling it up. But I'm trying to not agitate the water as much as possible. I'm just putting my hands in, so you just stick it straight in and come back out. There's a little kind of a misty or stirred up there, but it doesn't spread because there's no current. It's a lake. There's no river kind of current. So I did about a foot and a half out from this side of the log. So, well, it's not on this side. So I go over to this side. Now, the rope for the weight, I think let's turn this down. The rope from the weight, the weight is sunk into the silt, obviously, because the weight is lead. It's sunk into the silt. And you see this little rope going up to this thing. So, and it's about, maybe I would say 1 foot away from the log. So, well, actually, no, it's about 6 inches away from the log. So I put my hand in. I start right at the end of the log. I put my hand in, and nothing. And I put this hand in, and I felt the weight. I hit the weight because that's where my hand was. The very next hit, I hit Sandy's phone. Just hit it. Like, I go, what the? How is this even possible? And I was literally astounded that possibly the weight hit her phone on the way down into the silt. Now, her phone was flat, and it was about 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch below the top of the silt, so you never would have seen it because the silt had covered over top of it. The other thing that really amazed me is because I did a thorough search around this log 2 days in a row, where I was just looking at the surface to see if there's any kind of disturbance at all. And I saw these little squiggly lines. If you ever, again, you dive up here in Ontario, you'll see these little squiggly lines in the silt. That could be, again, one of those little mollusks, one of those little shells, the guy's pushing itself around. Or it could be a fish or whatever it is. And there is no rectangle. There is nothing that looked like it had disturbed the silt where her phone was. I saw where the weight went through because the rope is still sticking out. And of course, the rope's moving around because this thing's hitting by the wind, right? It's moving around because of the wind. But one hand, nothing. The other hand, the next time it hit the weight. And the very third time, I hit her phone. And I pick it up. So here's me picking up her phone the next day. And I'm just excited, right? Because I found my wife's phone, right? She's got to be happy now. She's going to need a new one because, of course, this thing has been sitting in the water now for 18 hours. Like my phone was not good. We can go into that in a second. But her phone, it's been sitting there just as long as mine, 18 hours. And I'm coming up because I got her phone now, and I hit about 10 feet of water coming up. All of a sudden, her phone lights up with a text from her sister. I'm going, what? I'm in 10 feet of water with her phone in my hand, and there's a text from her sister that just came in while I'm in 10 feet of water. The screen just lit up. I'm going, this is uncanny. So I get up to the surface. There's Joe in the boat waiting for me because, of course, he ran out of air. And I hold up her phone, and it's on. It's 100%. Now, we did our research that the iPhone 11, the one that she has the ability to stay in 6 feet of water, whatever. I don't know the exact stats, but it has the ability to stay in the water for 30 minutes. This phone was in the water for 18 hours. 18 hours. And I found it underneath the silt. So I handed it to Joe. He already had my phone in the boat. So I shouldn't take off my hand when I'm taking the scuba. So we have both phones now. We pack up, we grab everything else, we grab the boy, and we go back and we tell Sandy to get news. So here's Sandy sitting now we're sitting on the shore now. She's sitting in the lawn chair, and I should have built this part, but I didn't. And I come back and in my dive gear, obviously, sitting in the boat, and I say, "Here's your phone, honey," right? And by the way, it still works perfectly. So, and I said, and in 10 feet of water, I got a text from your sister. It's like, really? Like, there was nothing about this that wasn't some huge serendipitous coincidences. Nothing about this was at all crazy. So, but what we did do is before we even used the phones, even though hers was already on, is that we put both phones into a bag of rice and left it there for 24 hours until the next day, just to make sure. So both phones went into a bag of rice in the sun for 24 hours. And her phone has been working perfectly ever since. My phone, unfortunately, it did come on for a second. I probably should have left it in rice longer. It did come on because my battery is dead. I think that's why my phone wasn't working. My battery is dead, but I charged it up when I got home. And that's that little tiny red symbol at the bottom saying it's charging. And then I let it charge for a while, and then I hit the power button, and the screen flashed and went dead. The screen itself went dead. But every time I touch the screen, I can feel it shake like I'm trying to log into it, right? Because it has a password on it. But I can't see the screen. So whatever, there's a little bit of water where that light is, that lights up the screen, and the water shorted out the light when the phone turned on. So my phone is still, I believe, perfectly functioning, except it has no visible screen on it. And the other truly unfortunate part is, my phone is what we used to take pictures of our family with Friday on Friday's last day with us. And I didn't bother uploading those pictures. I don't upload to iCloud. Every couple months, I just download all my pictures to my computer, and we disseminate from there. And so my phone, even though right now I can't get the pictures off of it, still has the last day of our time with Friday, our dog that passed away a few weeks ago, a week before we went camping up at the cottage. And so I'm going to take it in someplace, and I'm told that people can retrieve data off your phone. So I am looking that up. It's not a huge priority right now, but I still have the phone. The screen still does not light up, but every time I charge it up and I press the screen, it shakes and it feels like you're supposed to type something, and I don't know where any of the buttons are. And as a matter of fact, I can't remember my passwords now because I got a new phone. So, anyway, so that's the whole story of what happened. And I've been wanting to tell it for a little tiny bit now because, I thought I'm going to build out a Lego. So I did. And I have to thank Joe and Carter, for taking us around and bringing us back in the boat and stuff. And I have to thank my buddy John for scuba diving with me, and Joe for scuba diving with me, and my buddy Mark, who was canoeing and telling me where he thought the phone was. That was a lot of fun. And I haven't had, honestly, besides the phones missing, because that's a little bit of a, But I love scuba diving. I've always loved the scuba diving. My first time I was scuba diving, I was 14 years old, and my dad threw his tanks in the back of the car, and we went down to Lake Ontario at Lewis Road there. And he said, this is even before I took a course, but he says, I've been hanging around divers since I was 2. And basically, the ins and outs were don't hold your breath and go have fun. And so I got a tank on my back when I was 14. And then I took the full course when I was 16 with all my friends from Boy Scouts. And I've been diving ever since. There's been a few years recently where I did not actually get a tank on my back for an entire year, which was not as surprising as it used to be, because I never. There was one year, my buddy John and I went diving at least 60 times in one summer. And we'd be sitting at coffee after work on a Tuesday saying, what do you want to do? Let's go for a dive. We would drive down the Grays Road, and we'd hop in the Grays Road into the lake, or we'd go over to Bronte or wherever, and we'd go for a dive and harass fish and piles of rocks and zebra mussels and whatever. Great time. We loved diving back in the day. It was just life gets in the way. And I do find the effort to get all your stuff on at the beginning of the dive now, it's just a lot of effort. And I'm getting lazier as I get older. So it's like, but I really would say, besides the phones being missing, I really love diving. The water was crystal clear. You could see 40 feet easily. Up there, and we're going up and down here. Let me get this thing back on here, because I just love doing this, because it's like a puppet show. We're just Jacques Cousteau descending into the depths and having a grand old time. And yes, this actually had a quest to find phones, but you know, there was some cute fish, and there was some cute rock formations, and some cute seaweeds that we had to look at, and lily pads. And it's all up here in the lily pads. And I just had a blast just burning through 2 tanks in one weekend, which I have not done in years. And yeah, most of us trying to find a phone. Trying to find both phones. And again, now I have a huge story to tell, because that never, ever, ever would have happened. I don't even know. I can't even understand the predictability or the odds of me finding the phone right beside the weight I dropped into the water when the boat was moving. I threw it in the water. We were just like, he was trolling in the shore. I threw it in, and I put my hands in. And again, that was just, again, throwing caution to the wind, because I'm pretty much done. And I just went boom, boom, hit her phone. It was like, wow. So some of the lessons, if you do find yourself in a small boat or a canoe and you flip it and you're in the water and there's stuff that you're losing underneath the water, look for points on the shore so you can kind of triangulate where it was. Because I said that the stump was straight in front of us. The second I popped my head above the water, I looked straight to shore. I remember that story from when I was a kid with my dad. You look straight to shore, straight on, 90 degrees to the shore. And what's in front of you? And I said, well, it's clear as day. It's a fallen over tree that fell over that way. So you got the big stump with the roots sticking out. You can't, there's no other way of, like, there's no other stump falling over like that. And then I turned 45 degrees approximately, and I saw a birch tree. And I, just by the distance from the shore, 30 or 40 feet, pretty easy to estimate. But if you're a mile out, it's a little different. As my dad, my Uncle Jeff flipped his boat. We were like a half a mile out. It's a little different than 30 or 40 feet, straight up. I understood that. But again, it's an approximation. But I said, so when I first got the first day, I was on the shore, I put my dive gear on, the stump is there, and I walked into the water, and I went straight out, and boom, I hit this log again, right? And this log, we were around a dozen times the day before, John and me. We're around this log. I was around it with Mark saying, go here, go there, go wherever. And every time I came back to this log, it was just odd. Probably because it was cloudy and there was a shadow underneath the log, just like there is here. And the phone was tucked right underneath it. Like, not like that, but it was like a bigger log and a smaller phone. So neither of us, two of us, I guess, yeah, John was there. Did Joe come over the first night? I can't remember. Joe. I think Joe came over too. So 3 of us were all over this area the first day, and we did not see my phone at all. Again, it was cloudy. So at 20 feet, it was a little darker than I'd like. And I didn't have a dive light because I didn't think I'd be diving in the dark. But it was still bright enough to see the ground straight down. But I think it's because of the shadow of the log and the fact that there was cloudy, so there was no straight down light. But the next day with the sun directly overhead, and Joe comes over and he says, boom, he sees the rectangle. And that's what basically said, Sandy's phone has to be near here. So there's my phone, and then Sandy's phone was right there on that side of the log. So they're about 2 feet apart. One was on one side of the log, hers was the other side of the log. So they must have hit the log. Mine fell on one side, hers fell on the other side. No, this side of the log, as I said, had that rocky outcropping that held the log up, so the log wasn't sinking into the silt. So my phone was on top. You could see it when you looked underneath the shadow of the log. Was her phone sitting flat, about, as I say, 1/4 to 1/2 inch underneath the silt. So it fell down, it made a little whoosh, and all the silt settled right on top of it. But you would think you would see the rectangle in the silt then. You would think that there'd be a rectangle of disturbed silt right there. But I didn't see it. And we were over this log, all 3 of us were over that log, like dozens of times throughout the 2 days we were there. But anyway, found her phone, makes a great story. I still believe that the lead weight basically just either just touched her phone or just was right beside the phone. It's a huge coincidence. And it's just such a nice story. So Sandy, as soon as we got home, ordered from Amazon lanyards with waterproof Ziplocs. So this will not happen again. We will keep our phones, because we love playing on the canoes and stuff like that. We'll just keep the phones inside the Ziplocs, the waterproof Ziplocs. That's what they're for, to keep the valuables that can't get wet. And she bought 2 of them, so I have one and she has one. And this shan't happen again. Anyway, thanks for coming along with me on this story time with Dave. And I had fun making the again, excuse the crudity of this this micro village here, this micro build here. I was honestly going to put the whole ground and put the log over there. That's screw it. Just do it here. So anyway, that's the end of my story and the story time with Dave. It is 8:17. I'm going to go up and spend some time with my family. In short, love you all. Thanks for watching, and I will talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.